I bid you welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I'm a certified translator and I'm a huge Dracula fan. I've read the book many times in English and in Spanish, and it's so amazing to discover new things every time you read it. However, there are certain things that I have never understood, so I just really wanted to share them with you guys and try to figure them out. Again, I absolutely love the novel. I think Bram Stoker is a genius, and I'm obviously looking at this from a 21st century perspective, but it's just for fun, so let's get started. Please, remember I'm talking about the novel, not the movies. And I'm making this clear because there are many events in the films that never occur in the book. For example, in the novel, Dracula never falls in love with Mina. She's not the reincarnation of his late wife, among other things.
I know you. I have crossed oceans of time to find you.
Okay, so without further delay, let's go to number 1. The first extra crazy thing that I noticed is Jonathan's stubbornness or insistence in going to Candy Castle, in spite of the numerous bad omens or negative signs he sees before. For example, when he arrives at the inn in Bistritz and tells the landlady he's heading to you-know-who castle, she literally bursts into tears and begs him not to go. And I quote Jonathan here. "She went down on her knees and implored me not to go. Then she rose and dried her eyes, and taking a crucifix from her neck, offered it to me, saying, 'For your mother's sake.'" End of quote. Okay. Then later, Jonathan sees local people talking about him and overhears the words Satan, hell, witch, wolf, vampire, and they also make the sign of the cross. Afterwards, he takes a coach to the Borgo Pass, where Dracula's carriage is supposed to pick him up. So when the coach gets to the Borgo Pass and one of Jonathan's travel companions sees Dracula's driver, she whispers, "For the dead travel fast." Plus, the driver is described by Jonathan as a tall guy with red eyes and sharp teeth. Very intimidating. So, at this point you think, dude, I get it. You want to make money and progress in life and get married, but why the hell are you going? I know, if Jonathan wasn't going to the castle, there would be no story. But it was just not credible. Even if he thought local people were too superstitious, there were too many bad signs to overlook. I think Stoker went crazy overboard by spreading so many bad signs right at the beginning. And I think the lesson here is, don't you ever disregard local peasants' superstitions. It could cost your fiancé's soul. Alright, that was not funny or witty or anything at all. Number 2. What's with the hate for Lucy, Bram? First, I know it was the 19th century, but anyway, Stoker makes Lucy way too chauvinistic. In her letters to Mina, she writes, "My dear Mina, why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them?" Excuse me? Then she writes, "Men like women, certainly their wives, to be quite as fair as they are, and women, I'm afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be." Shocking, right? Also, Lucy kisses Quincy even when she didn't accept his marriage proposal, and that was quite a bold move for that age. She sounds kind of frivolous too when she says, "I know, Mina, you will think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help feeling a sort of exultation that he was number 2 in one day." She means she had 3 proposals that day: Dr. Seward, Quincy, and Arthur. Finally, she chooses Arthur, a future lord, as her fiancé, while Mina is engaged to a modest, hard-working solicitor like Jonathan.
I love him and I've said yes! So finally. Don't tell me. The Texan with the big knife.
Oh no, to my dear number 3, Lord Arthur Homewood, Lord and Lady Homewood.
Lucy is admired by men mainly by her beauty. She's often described as extremely pretty and charming, although also as rather fragile and needy. In opposition, Mina is depicted as a smart and independent young woman, thoughtful, sober, and very analytical. Unlike Lucy, she's not admired for her beauty, but for her intelligence, kindness, and consideration. And it is she who gets salvation in the end, while poor Lucy dies a horrible death. Twice. It is almost as if Stoker was punishing beauty, wealth, and frivolity, and sending the message, girls, be smart, modest, and low-key like Mina if you want to be saved. Anyway, I read Stoker got inspiration for Lucy's character from his wife, so I guess he had a few issues with his significant other. Don't you think? Number 3. How Van Helsing's incompetent silence got Lucy killed. From the very beginning, Dr. Van Helsing suspects there is something super strange about Lucy's illness, but instead of sharing it with Dr. Seward, he chooses to keep it to himself. He speaks in riddles, he frequently returns to Amsterdam to consult books and do research on the matter. Man, why don't you bring your books to London or else? Don't you trust English libraries or what? He clearly knows there is a vampire involved, but he doesn't tell anyone.
Now, one last thing. Will you allow me the liberty of examining your teeth and throat?
Of course.
Good. Now. Good. Good.
This causes Dracula to prey on Lucy whenever he had the chance, because Van Helsing never says specifically to Seward that there's a vampire attacking her and she can't be left alone at night, not for a single minute. So Seward, after several nights of watching her closely and utterly exhausted, leaves Lucy's room and sleeps in another room next to hers, only to find her the following morning, according to his words, more horribly white and one-looking than ever. Moreover, Van Helsing never informs Lucy's mom that the garlic flowers he put around her were for medicinal purposes and vital for her good health. Allegedly because Mrs. Westenra had a severe heart condition and couldn't be disturbed. So the good lady takes the smelly garlic flowers out and opens the windows, thus inviting the vampire in to feed freely from her daughter. Some mom, huh? In the end, Lucy dies because Dr. Smarty Pants goes to Amsterdam, yet again, and sends a telegram to Seward to replace him on his watch. But the telegram gets delayed, and when they see Lucy the following morning, she had already suffered another attack. Nothing can save her this time. When poor Lucy dies, he says, "This is only the beginning," but still doesn't say what is really going on. Even worse, a few days later, when he finds out that Vampire Lucy has been attacking some children, he wonders, "So soon? Like, are you kidding me? You knew she would bite people and you just waited there instead of trying to do something?" And finally, when he decides to ambush Lucy on her grave, he never warns Arthur, Quincy, or Seward about the truth. He just takes them to the cemetery to witness the woman of their lives turn into a horrible vampire and biting innocent children as well.
Lucy!
Not only a terrible doctor, but also a terrible friend. I mean, guys, come on, he made so many clumsy mistakes. Was he really trying to save Lucy, or he was just a twisted madman who wanted to experiment and see how she turned into a vampire? Who was the real monster here? Alright, maybe I got carried away a little here, but yeah, whatever. Number 4. Other vampires? Assuming that Dracula is blood tepish, the novel doesn't say that specifically but gives us some clues. You're telling me that in 400 years or so he never created other vampires apart from the brides? Taking into account that he fed regularly from humans, and apparently if he fed too much from a victim they became vampires, as we saw with Lucy, figures don't add. Towards the end of the book, Jonathan tells us that they returned to Transylvania after the adventure just to visit the place. How masochistic. Personally, I would have stayed at least 50,000 miles away from there. But whatever. How is that they never found any other vampire in Romania? Another thing that doesn't make any sense is Van Helsing's claim about Dracula having a childlike intelligence, because he was constantly trying and testing his powers and discovering new things just like children do. I mean, are you sure? Again, in 400 years he never got the chance to learn about his powers? Another brilliant assumption made by our Dutch doctor/philosopher. Great. Well done, Doc. Other doubts I have about this are, when Jonathan met Dracula in London, the monster was chasing a pretty girl in the street. What happened to her? And what about the children Lucy beat? Did they turn? Or they healed just like that and never got infected? So many questions unanswered. Number 5. The sudden ending. It is curious how Stoker takes his time to tell us Jonathan's surreal experience in the castle, pours Lucy's agonizing illness, as well as the long process when she becomes a vampire and gets killed. And many other things are described in great detail, except for the end. In just a couple of paragraphs, we get how Jonathan cuts Dracula's throat and Quincy goes for the heart. And according to Mina, it was like a miracle, but before our very eyes and almost in the drawing of a breath, the whole body crumbled into dust and passed from our sight. Then, a short explanation of how Quincy died, Jonathan telling us that he and Mina had a son and visited Transylvania, that both Arthur and Seward got married, and the final paragraph is made of words of praise from Van Helsing to Mina, calling her sweet, brave, and gallant. Okay, first thing that came to my mind was, is that it? Because after 27 chapters, I would have expected a much longer, dramatic ending. Dracula crawling out of the wooden box and trying to regroup in the castle, kind of Coppola style. Wolves coming to defend their master. I was hungry for an extra dose of drama. Actually, any over-the-top ending from any Dracula movie is better than the novel's plain finale. Yes, even that infamous 1979 Langella Dracula's cape flying in the sky. Yeah, that one. Or the author could have also left an open door for a sequel. The Harkers had to run for their lives when they visited Transylvania again because they found other vampires made by Dracula who wanted revenge. Or Arthur, who was never able to forget Lucy, returned to Romania as a vampire hunter, perhaps teaming up with Van Helsing? I'm aware that sequels were not much of a thing those days, but please, give us some more. My feeling is that Bram Stoker just got tired of writing and wanted to finish the novel ASAP, but maybe it's just my impression. I'm not gonna add the number 6, but as a bonus track, I should say that I have never understood the figure of Renfield either, because what's the real connection he has with the story anyway? What kind of link he has with Dracula, considering he's never met the Count before? I know his character is very attractive and brings drama and creepiness to the plot, but please notice that in a couple of movies they even made Renfield Jonathan's predecessor, or he's the one that originally goes to the castle, because otherwise he made no real sense in the story.
R.M. Renfield, successful solicitor in the firm of Hawkins and Tompkins, respected member of the Lord Nugent's Wyndham Club, returns from business abroad in Transylvania. Promptly suffers a complete mental breakdown.
Well, my friends, as I said before, my comments are just for comedic purposes and strictly from a 21st century point of view. Because this is an amazing novel that has captured the imagination of so many people worldwide and that stays relevant until today. And the reason is it deals with issues that obsess humans: eternal life, eternal youth, money, class, power, the power to control others, etc. I wonder if Bram Stoker could have ever imagined the impact that his work would have in our pop culture. How many stories, books, movies, theater plays, and art in general it would inspire, and how many times it would be revisited, remade, and adapted in films. By the way, I have a great video coming up soon about how Dracula's image and personality has evolved and changed in movies, so make sure to check it out. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Take care, love you all, bye!